Greetings, humans. This unit is about whether we should offend people. And to really unpack that, we need a concept. So this video in this series is about metacommunication. And the thesis here is authoritarianism increases violence. And violence is ultimately the opposite of civility. So, authoritarianism increases violence through a variety of mechanisms, including and not limited to inequality, inequity, increasing inequity, an arbitrary approach to legalism that tends to benefit thugs and grifters so long as they support the power structure, where the law, rather than providing equal protection, provides protection for the thugs and grifters and is a weapon for said thugs and grifters against the rest of us. Desperation and metacommunication. Carl Rogers proposed a therapist should be congruent. And by that, he meant that our thoughts, emotions, words, and actions should all align. These days, we'd say that's authenticity. That would be authenticity. And it's not good enough for a therapist. It might be good enough for you, it's fine. It's not good enough for a psychotherapist. You could, for example, authentically hate your client. An emotion, hate. You could wish them harm, a cognition. You could state as much. Say that you intend to harm them, words. And then do them the threatened harm. And that would be totally authentic. That'd be totally, completely, and in all other ways authentic. That's not good enough. It's not good enough for a therapist. It's probably not good enough for other servants of the people. So Virginia Satir in the late 70s and early 80s proposes this corrective. To really be congruence and not merely authenticity, then the emotions, thoughts, words, and deeds must also be appropriate to the environment in which they occur. And they must respect the rights of others. And we have a pretty good working definition for congruence that does an okay job for us in human service kinds of profession. So both Rogers and Satir would want their beings in alignment. If you get a chance to watch the Carl Rogers Gloria video, he does this treatment session with Gloria, and this is what he's saying at the beginning and at the end of the session is, I hope that I'm fully in alignment, so I'm there for that person in a way that's not confusing, so she can be who she is. Right? Good. Satir, though, says sometimes something is out of alignment. There's something in our being that doesn't match, and when that occurs, we risk some form of meta-communication. And a meta-communication is the things we're communicating without meaning to. And often those meta-communications are directly contrary to the thing we're trying to communicate. My parents were avid smokers of cigarettes and told me not to smoke cigarettes. And so when my friend, 10 years old, and my friend says, let's steal your parents' cigarettes and smoke them, I'm all in on that. I didn't hear the message, don't smoke. I heard the message, smoking is for good people, like my parents. I wanted to be in the good person club. So, for example, Susie hits Johnny. Little Susie hits little Johnny. And mother grabs Susie by the wrist and says, Susie, don't hit, and then hits her. What is Susie to learn from this encounter? It's not don't hit, right? It's not that hitting is wrong, right? because mother gave the verbal instruction, don't hit, but then hit. The words don't match up with the deeds. So we have the potential for metacommunication, the probability of metacommunication. Susie could learn that it's good to be the king. That's what she could learn. It's okay to hit if you're bigger, right? She could learn that mother is just a huge hypocrite and is not to be trusted. Her words are meaningless. She could learn not to hit when mother is looking, right? Hitting is cool, but don't get caught, because getting caught comes with this punishment. Or that boys are better than girls. Boys get protection from hitting and girls don't get protection from hitting. Or that you shouldn't hit people. But hitting Susie is fine. And if you shouldn't hit people and hitting Susie is fine, then Susie must not be a person. In other words, shame. Shame. Hate crimes surged in America through the 2015 Trump campaign, through the subsequent 4 years of the Trump administration. Hate crimes absolutely surged. The drumbeat of nationalism and authoritarianism and fake news and weird propaganda and lying when the truth would be better, and no one knows who to trust for information. We're divided up, we're siloed out. Hate crimes surge. People are left confused, frightened of strangers, of others, and empowered to act on those fears. There's no evidence that the death penalty reduces violent crime, because people contemplating violence just aren't thinking about consequences in the abstract 20 years in the future. There is evidence that in the short term, violent crime spikes in a city when the death penalty is enacted. The state shows contempt for human life, and the populace follows. The state has said, don't kill, and then killed. When schools eject bullies, zero tolerance rules in schools. When schools eject bullies after one incident, they don't really solve the problem. They solve a litigation problem. In a litigious society, ejecting bullies isn't about doing good for students. It's about not getting sued. But the kid has just moved down the road to another school with all the problems they had before. They haven't learned anything, not anything helpful. They've observed power being used against them, an authoritarian judgment. What works to stop bullying is, first, pay attention to the school culture. If you're actually interested in violent crime, the way to reduce violent crime is by attending to the social conditions that lead to violent crime. Right? Being tough on crime in America is usually being tough on criminals, which just fundamentally doesn't work. It's not effective. So you attend to school culture, and when students are invested in one another, trained to act in the face of bullies, to report them, and they know that those reports become action items, someone follows up those reports, and they're trained not to tolerate, much less reward, bullies in their midst. Bullies just don't have a safe and functional niche in that school. And then when something happens, it's much less likely to happen. Or when it happens, then some communication or social skills training and some restorative justice take place after the fact, instead of merely ejecting the person from society and forcing them to cope in a new society down the line. And bullies just aren't who you think they are. Usually, the idea of the bully victim is the person who goes home at night and their daddy thrashes them every night, and then crap rolls downhill, right? And they get to school and they find someone small and weak on whom to take out their frustrations. And that is not It happens. Yeah, it happens. But that's a minority of the bullies. Bullies tend to be the alpha or beta kid in the alpha pack. The popular kids are the bullies. And the way this works is the popular kid singles out someone else. They look around at the herd and they single out someone weak and then devastate them with words or sometimes with aggression, sometimes a sock to the stomach they can't do anything about. And by bringing that person even lower, right, by acting against an out group, it elevates the status of the person in the in group and thereby the status of everyone in that in group. And this is why Donald Trump in 2015 and 16 would be obsessed with Rosie O'Donnell, a D-list celebrity who hasn't done anything important since the 1990s. Outgrouping someone vulnerable and then highlighting their lowliness empowers the in-group. Authority is uncivil. It breeds incivility. Acting violently towards the populace more or less forces the populace to rise up violently. So there's your concept, metacommunication. Write it down. There's a test. I don't know, what, you were in school or something? Black pill out.